Hello, everyone, and welcome to the With Chinese Characteristics podcast. I'm Cherry.
No, you're not.
Sorry, I'm not.
What's happening?
I'm Natalie.
What's happening right now?
Just say your name, okay?
I am Cherry.
Let's not dwell on this. Okay, so Cherry is Cherry. I'm Natalie. We talk about topics with Chinese characteristics, culture, politics, history, whatever. And what's our topic for today, Cherry?
Okay.
Just keep going. The show must go on.
Welcome to part 3 of the series. That's basically just explaining how China does not have a democracy.
Has a fake democracy.
And I mean, you already know that. Then why do we need 3 whole episodes on this topic? Well, Nali has a reason.
I don't think people do know that. I mean, I think people know that to an extent, but then there's people on Twitter or different stuff who go, actually, China does have a democracy.
And the tankies.
And they have votes, and it's, like, well, you don't get to choose necessarily, like, who's going to be president, right? Like, I don't know. It's just like, they just say stupid stuff. And it's good to actually explore what the actual, even if it's fake, process is, because it's interesting. And there's been points in time where it's almost been real,
We're going to cover that.
Yeah.
So, in part 1 and part 2, we talked about the introduction of the concept of voting and democracy in China in the mid-19th century, voting in the Republic of China, and then voting under the CCP government in the first 30 years of the new republic, the PRC. And if you recall, China, the PRC, did release a national election law in the early 1950s. And even though those elections were single candidate elections, which means they're not elections at all.
No.
Maybe I shouldn't be calling them that.
They're more like coronations.
Yes. But still, the CCP had put on a good show. A lot happened in the first 30 years of the PRC. And if you're listening to this podcast, I don't think we need to go into too much details here. You get an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to the first 2 episodes.
Exactly. So we think of those elections, or quote unquote, coronations, graduations, confirmations of candidates handpicked by the party, to be non-elections, but nevertheless mass political movements.
Yeah.
30 years later.
Do you know what they're like? They're almost like, it's like a Trump rally.
Yeah.
It's like no one's going there to have their mind changed.
No.
Right? You're just going there to shout at the right times.
Yeah.
And pat each other on the back. And that's the Maoist mass elections
exactly.
right there.
So 30 years after China had become a new China, in 1979, what do we have now?
A new China.
A new election law.
Wow. A new election law.
For this new election law, you might go, actually you might not, but I wrote as this. You might go, wait, for real this time?
Wow, that's what I was wondering too, Cherry.
No, never. But still, it's worth discussing.
Okay.
Before getting into this new election law, though, I want to address something that I felt was missing in the past 2 episodes, or rather, maybe I just haven't emphasized it enough, or to do it credit. What we're discussing here, what the Chinese people are supposedly, but are not, electing, are people's representatives. That's not to say these are the only type of quote-unquote fake elections in China, but the National People's Congress, comprised of these people's representatives, is the most advertised, most public, propaganda-filled, and visible institution that is claimed to be elected and to represent people's interest. Okay, we're not talking about electing mayors or town leaders or, the local water board or the school board.
This is the group of the people who they wear all the different outfits and meet in Beijing.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what we're talking about here. So what does the National People's Congress do? Well, according to the constitution of the PRC, which is to be respected and followed strictly, it is the highest government body in China. It should be able to make laws, interpret laws, criticize the government, although itself is the government. It's supposed to elect the president of China, so President Xi, not a result of internal power struggles, but through democratic elections.
Yeah, of course, sure. It was all above the level.
Yeah. And aside from this, you can find news articles, or more like announcements, that says, so-and-so was just elected provincial leader of Zhejiang, which is a province in China, or mayor of Hangzhou or whatever. But that's all the information you're ever going to get. When was the election? How many votes? Who were the candidates? None of that.
But it's supposedly decided by the People's Congress.
It's supposedly decided by the People's Representative at the People's Congress at different levels in the country. So that's a very secretive selecting process, which I don't want to say deep waters, but let's just say non-transparent and probably a process done through internal power struggles.
And then they go, all right, everybody, we're going to vote for this guy after the
yeah, but you don't even know that. They don't even advertise that, right? But on the other hand, the National People's Congress, though, we all know it's just a rubber stamp institution, but compared to what I just mentioned, highly public.
So okay, so there's local people's congresses.
There are.
On like what, the provincial level?
No, on every level.
So there'll be like a city level and a provincial level.
Yep.
But then the highest one is the National People's Congress.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and the local people's Congress sometimes are supposed to, they announce that they have elected the mayor. But, there is no advertised meetings. There is no pictures of
there's no campaign there's no campaign posters.
No.
There's no.
Well, the National People's Congress also doesn't have campaign posters. But at least it has state media news reportings.
Yeah. So yeah, we voted. No, you can't see.
Yeah. But what we can see is that every year in March, 3,000 or so representatives go to Beijing. And the state media makes a big deal.
So are these drawn from the lower people's congresses?
That's what they're supposed to.
Okay. But again, we don't really fully know.
Yeah. So these representatives meet at the Great Hall of the People. That's really the name of the hall, which is an actual state building located at the western edge of the Tiananmen Square. All state media reports on this. They interview people on the steps in front of the building. Representatives who are ethnic minorities have to, wear the Disney version of the costumes. And that's the propaganda that gets used over and over again. So that's what we're going to focus on.
Yeah, that is the thing. If you ever see the videos of the People Congress where, if you're part of a certain ethnic group, I don't think it's a decision. I think you have to wear whatever costume the Communist Party has decided.
You mean
your people wear?
You can say that. They're representing.
That's true. They're honored. They're honored.
That's totally what they do every day.
Yeah.
Wear those costumes and.
Yeah. They're honored to represent Xinjiang or whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, let's dive into the 1979 law before I blabber on more. Here's what the law says.
So this is after Mao's dead.
Yes.
Okay.
After the Cultural Revolution had ended.
Yeah.
New China. First of all, the single candidate election is no longer.
Wow.
Yay! A step forward. Or is it? I think it's just getting harder as time goes on to even pretend that that's a real election system. So it's even harder to use that for propaganda. Yeah. And the new system is still not real, but at least on paper, we no longer have single candidate elections.
Yeah.
But there is a limit on how many candidates there can be. For the first level of direct election, voters vote for their representatives.
Okay. And this is not all the people in China. This is voters, which could be 7 people for a whole city or something.
So the contrast is that China is no longer using voting, using that piece of paper, the voters' registration, to prosecute people.
Okay, to determine if you're like a real citizen or not.
Yes, there's less of that. But also because we are no longer. The first 30 years was the age of mass political movements.
So we're moving toward
away from less of that.
So we're
Cultural Revolution went too far.
So we're moving away from voting as a mass movement thing.
Yeah.
And now is something more bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And selective.
Well, our voters, our listeners can determine that for themselves.
Okay.
Once we've gone through this episode, but the number of candidates for the local election, for the direct election, should be between 1 and 1/3 to 2 times of the number of the representatives to be elected.
Okay.
So this means if there are 3 spots for people's representatives, there should be 4 to 6 candidates.
Okay.
If there's 1 spot, there can only be 1.3 to 2 candidates. For the indirect elections, meaning these representatives electing their representatives, 1 1/5 to 1 1/2 candidates for each spot. So this means that if there are 10 spots, there can only be 12 to 15 candidates. If there's 1 spot, there can be 1.2 to 1.5 candidates.
How do you get nominated to be a candidate? Okay.
What if there are too many candidates nominated? Which also will answer the question, who nominates the candidate?
Also, you can't just hold up your finger because the audience can't see that.
Oh, sorry. I was telling Natalie to wait. I was like, hold on. Yeah, I'll say hold on. Quote, the electoral committee shall submit it to the electoral group of each constituency for discussion and negotiation. Okay, so to answer your question, electoral committee, electoral groups of constituencies and local voters can nominate their own candidates.
But in reality, it's probably an internal bureaucratic process that determines who
it's
it
not
is.
probably, it is.
Yeah.
And based on the opinions of the majority of voters, determine the list of candidates for official representative. If a relatively unanimous opinion cannot be formed on the candidates, a preliminary election shall be conducted. I cannot find examples of this.
Ever happening?
Yeah. So how do I know who are the candidates as a voter? The election committee, the mysterious organization that holds, an unlimited amount of power, should announce it to the people.
Okay.
To the voters, I'm sorry. Political parties, people's organizations, voters, and representatives that recommend candidates may introduce the recommended candidates for representation at the voter group or representative group meeting. Okay. But if you try to organize one of these voter group meetings, please will come. According to the requirements of voters, the election committee shall organize representative candidates to meet with the voters, and the representative candidates shall introduce themselves and answer the voters' questions. I can find some news reports of this happening, and it's this one meeting room with 5 people that, they definitely do not represent all walks of people.
They look like
from society.
Party bureaucrats.
Yeah, exactly. They all look the same.
Yeah.
They all have the same hairstyle.
And glasses, probably.
Or outfit, yeah.
Suit.
But you meet them, supposedly.
So basically what I'm getting is like, if you were to read the laws, you'd go, oh yeah, this
looks great.
This all seems reasonable. I mean, like it's obviously there's a lack of checks and balances here, but there is a process.
Yeah.
But you're basically saying in reality, it basically doesn't actually happen.
No. And we're going to talk about like the lack of checks and balances, why that's a problem.
Yeah.
Democracy 101, you need checks and balances.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, who can nominate these very strict number of candidates? I actually did write answers for this question.
Okay.
At the local level, now supposedly the opposition parties, we do have opposition parties in China, surprise, surprise, all 8 of them, and they have official rankings by the Communist Party.
It doesn't sound that oppositional if they have a rating each. Okay.
Yeah, and no more, no less. It's not like tomorrow we're going to have 9, or...
So you can't just start up like
No.
the Chinese Green Party
No.
or like these are the oppositional parties you can be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And we're going to get into the history of them, which is quite interesting, actually. It's more than just like rubber stamp.
Okay.
So individual voters can nominate candidates if there are more than 10 of them. And also, people's organizations can nominate candidates. What are people's organizations? It's not something you are allowed to have. So
I mean, I guess it says more than 10 voters, but it's not like you can get your friends together and have 100 of you and have a rally and say we're going to nominate.
Well, there will be no rally. No.
The police will just come and arrest you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So technically you could do all these things.
Yeah.
But again, it's just not done magically because Chinese people are just so happy with our representation.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay.
The correct person there's a Chinese propaganda poster from the mass movements, and it was like this lady walking out of like a building with like holding a note, and it was like, we're all happy with our chosen elected people's representatives.
Yeah, exactly. Assigned people's representatives.
Yeah.
So
we are satisfied.
So at these actual local elections, whether they happen or not is a question in itself, but there is the propaganda version of it occasionally. And I showed Natalie a video a couple of days ago before we recorded, and it's this news piece.
Yeah.
And videos, supposedly local voters going to vote. There's 16 people or so. They all are the same height. They all wear the same outfit.
Yeah.
What Natalie said, it was like, did they just bring them from the same factory? I mean, in a way they did. These are all mid-level party officials. That's why they all look like that. Middle-aged Chinese men. And there is a stage. It's all red, okay? Like revolutionary red, dyed by the
blood of the
by the blood of the revolutionaries.
Soldiers.
Yeah. And in the middle of this giant stage, there is one like ballot box. And you're supposed to, one by one, these voters walk onto the stage, cast their vote into the box, smile, take a picture, and then walk off the stage.
Also, though, when they cast the vote, they always drop it in with the writing facing the camera, and they do it very slowly.
Yeah.
So like you can clearly see what they marked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just...
It's like a religious ceremony.
Yes.
You know, it's like you go up and you light a candle.
Yeah.
You know, or you go up and you get communion.
Yeah.
You know, you eat the bread and the wine.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is Jesus's body. This is his blood. That's like what it is. It's just like, it's like a ceremony.
It is. And the narrator, right, announces so-and-so from so-and-so district is voting today. And then you're like, okay, you've said like 3 districts.
Yeah.
We're still on the same stage.
Yeah.
I can see the curtains look exactly like in the same position. There is one fake location that this happens.
Yeah.
And it's
or
bizarre.
Maybe they just got one person from each province to show up to the stage and drop
No,
their
they were
box in.
saying that they voted in their district.
Oh, okay.
You know, it would get a little confusing if different districts' votes have been mixed together.
Well, it's not like you're going to count them. So.
Exactly. So what happens after these, quote, elections, local elections?
Yeah.
At the city level or the village level, the elected representatives will then gather and elect their own representatives at the provincial level.
Okay.
However, here's the trick, as if it's not all a trick.
Yeah.
These representatives don't have to elect one of themselves to be their representative. They're supposed to, right? That's what makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, the law says the candidate for the next level does not need to come from this level, so that you can just basically elect whatever.
Yeah.
And what that means is the party can decide this can be whoever.
Yeah.
So even if you achieve a very small scale of local elections to be free and fair, which you don't, it will be extremely hard. At the next level, the possibility is cut off very efficiently.
Yeah. So it's possible you could sneak in somebody who actually thought, oh, I can get elected people's representative for this city, make some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
they're forced to elect the mayor, who is already the mayor anyways. Yeah. Eventually, anyways, at the provincial level, the elected representatives...
So you can be like a mayor and a national people's representative?
100%.
Oh, okay.
Mayors, we'll get to that.
Okay.
At the provincial level, they elect representatives again to be part of the National People's Congress. We get to the highest level now.
So at that point, there's no sneaking somebody in at all?
No. The PLA also get their own representatives on the national level, and the up limit is about 3,000 people, or a little bit less than that goes to Beijing every March.
Okay, in the total.
Yeah. So how do we know then if these 3,000 people truly represent China?
The PLA is the People's Liberation Army, by the way. It's the Chinese military.
Yes.
Actually, no, it's the party's military.
Exactly.
It is not the
Chinese.
Chinese.
It's one. It's the party in the country. It's one. Okay, it's one. There is no new China without the Communist Party.
I could see how they would say that, yes, Jerry.
Yeah. You can see how they benefit from that.
I could see how they would encourage that saying.
So we know that they don't. But how are they supposed to, right? How are they supposed to represent China?
Yeah, at the national level.
At the national level. You know? And how do we make sure that everyone in China, namely the 56 ethnic groups, are all represented? And again, I want to make a disclaimer here that every time now when I say 56 ethnic groups, that's just the party's definition.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't know if there's more or there's less. We could do an episode on that, how they actually get categorized by the government.
Yeah.
And
it kind of reminds me of like like the UK drawing up borders in the Middle East. They're just like, we'll put a line here. Exactly. You're part of that group. You're part of this group. We'll give that to them.
It's exactly.
And now it's like, well, it's decided. Yeah. There's 56 of you.
Yeah.
Forever. It's like if it turns out there's 55, we'll put some Han people into costumes and send them to the People's Congress.
Yeah.
But you better not say you're the 57th. Yeah. You're in big trouble.
Yeah. So since China is a big garden, and we all grow strongly and harmoniously together as a family.
It's true. It's well known.
Then this picture, this happy family image, must also be represented at the national level. Well, there's one thing that we can guarantee, which is there needs to be at least one representative from each ethnic group.
Okay. Each of the 56?
Yeah. In 2020, Xinhua News Agency, which is the state media, published the decisions made by the Standing Committee of the 13th People's Congress of the PRC.
When you say 13, does that mean like they refresh the members every like 4 years or something?
5 years.
Oh, 5 years. So you're elected for 5 years, and then you meet one time.
No, you meet every year during those 5 years.
Yeah, you meet one time every year during those 5 years.
Yes.
You're not there permanently.
No, most of you are not. Okay. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Well, anyways, the Xinhua News Agency basically announced in this news article on how many slots the ethnic minorities get in the next People's Congress.
Okay.
So this People's Congress decides in the next People's Congress how many slots each minority group gets. So for the next year in 2023, it says that there will be 360, the magical number, which is also the same as the current number for this People's Congress.
No more, no less.
No more, no less. So all provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities shall elect 320 representatives of ethnic minorities. The People's Liberation Army and the Chinese People's Armed Police Force shall elect 14 representatives of ethnic minorities.
The People's Armed Police are what took over for the PLA for policing internal disputes. So like if there's another Tiananmen Square, they don't want the PLA gunning people down on the street because they think it looks bad.
Not again.
They want the PAP.
The other 26 out of the 360 allocations shall be made by the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress in accordance with the law, which just means free for all. So within the 320 that all the provinces together
They have to share.
Yeah. Well, fixed slots are allocated to each ethnic minority group in each province.
Okay.
It's not like the provinces figure that out themselves.
Okay.
What if there's migration, No. What if there's shifting of population and demographics?
These are 56 flowers.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
In like a very defined grid of flower beds.
Yes.
They don't migrate.
No. So CCP, I'm sorry, the Standing Committee of the People's Congress has figured it out for them. Okay? For example, we should have 20 Manchurian representatives total. Beijing gets 1. Hebei province gets 2.
Okay.
Inner Mongolia, which is an autonomous region, not a province, but it's, it's China. It's
not autonomous.
Yeah. Gets 1. Liaoning province gets 10. Jilin province gets 2. Heilongjiang province gets 4. And it's not a suggestion, and you can swap, okay? You just stick with your own numbers. And obviously, it's all very tidy and neat and fake. And not just the representation of ethnic minorities are protected, whose rights are also specially protected.
Who?
Returned overseas Chinese people. So what does that mean, returned overseas Chinese people? Because there's a lot of returned overseas Chinese people.
Yeah.
There's all these international students. There's all these people who moved to China.
Yeah.
People
who moved to places like Indonesia or Singapore and then came back.
Yeah. So in order to be counted in this category, you have to be someone who has given up another country's citizenship and gained Chinese citizenship, which is a very hard thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Often just happens within the, how do I put this, elite circles.
Yeah.
China might invite make a special case for a scientist to come back to China. And
what if you're not Chinese though? Are your rights protected if you want to be like that British guy who's a newscaster? Yeah.
Well, that's a confusing area because the Chinese says Huaqiao, literally meaning like Hua is like people of Chinese descent, right? But then in the definition it just says people who have gained Chinese citizenship, So,
not,
I guess there's not that many of them.
In the end, there's not going to be a court case over it, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Okay. No. No one's going to sue the Chinese government for that.
Yeah. I demand my people's representative.
Yes. But I do find this interesting because it's like you can do that in America, right?
Yeah.
Basically, all Americans are, I don't know, there's so many immigrants.
Yeah.
Do immigrants get immigrants representatives? No, you're just all Americans.
In the end, everybody's given up or someone's past has given up some other.
Well, unless you're indigenous American.
Well, if you're indigenous American, I don't think you're necessarily, you still have like a tribal membership probably.
But you're not a citizen of America?
You are. It's a little bit more complicated than that though.
Okay.
You're kind of both. I don't think you don't have to, you have an association and you have.
Well, that's a black hole we're not going to get into today then. That's
it's a complicated situation.
Yeah, not to be whataboutism, but suppression is universal.
Yeah.
So, but I find it interesting in the Chinese case because in a way they are treating it as a zero-sum game because they have an incentive showcasing that these people have preferred Chinese citizenship over some other country's citizenship.
Yeah.
And the ones that gets advertised are often like, oh, so-and-so scientists came back from America to China because, it very much is like the Cold War mentality.
Well, yeah, and also it's like these people are going to have knowledge and connections that are going to help. If you consider things in the context of 1980s China, these are people going to have knowledge and contacts that are going to help China grow.
Yeah, exactly. It also implies that the PRC is the ultimate home of Chinese people everywhere as it tries to insert its, influence.
Yeah.
Today in Taiwan, Southeast Asia, everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I find that one particularly interesting. That's the law. The law itself is not that long.
Yeah.
And it really hasn't changed all that much since its first edition in 1979. There has been minor modifications over the years.
Well,
but the spirit is there.
There's not going to be a Supreme Court case if somebody denied I think we should have 11 Manchurians instead of 10. It's not.
No. The standing committee said otherwise.
Yeah.
Who elects the standing committee? We'll get to that. So, I want to emphasize once again, and I know this is starting to get old because for the past 2 episodes, every 10 minutes I feel obligated to say, this is all fake, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't treat it as this, But I just once again, this is a rubber stamp law, much like the People's Congress itself. But let's just assume that its intention is good, right? Because if you read the words, you're like, this sounds great.
Yeah.
This sounds reasonable.
You have to let minorities be part of it.
Yes. But this, this intention is good is often used as an excuse that the lawmakers had good intentions, but at the lower levels of the government, they're just not executed well. Right? So we don't blame Beijing. We blame the local party official.
The mountains
which is
are
not
high.
the root of the problem.
Mountains are high and the emperor's far away.
Exactly.
So yeah, they could be like, well, how can we be a racist, Han-centric government? If we were that, would we have 360 ethnic minorities?
Yes.
No,
But
how could we?
But what you're saying is treating the law as, like
it's real.
Yeah. But also, even if you do treat this law as real, and you try to do what it says and use it as a blueprint to build a democratic process, it will not work. There are many provisions on what should be done, but there is zero provision on if it's not done this way, what happens. Checks and balances, like you said.
Yeah.
And there is no judicial relief clause in the electoral law. For example, once a person's eligibility to participate in an election is disqualified or violated, which is everyone's, by the way. No one can truly exercise this right.
Yeah.
So we're all violated.
As it's described in the law.
Yes. But let's just say this one person, right, who has a problem with it. This person who's concerned, we can't sue an organization that violates our rights.
Yeah.
We can't sue the government saying my voters' rights are being suppressed. Once again, suppression of voter rights, a problem everywhere. There's always a tug and war.
Yeah.
If the election committee or the standing committee breaks the rule and stops voters from nominating candidates, which they do, what happens?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, you don't even have to stop them. You just do it and you pass it up the chain and don't even tell the voters. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not like all the voters expect like, oh, it's voting season. It's November. Like,
yeah. Well, some people do treat it seriously and try to see how far they can push.
At the low level.
Okay. Yeah. If the government does follow the law, that's fine. The people has no way to exercise their rights and keep the government in check. Not only that, if they did try, which many have to this date, very brave people, they will get ignored if they're extremely lucky by the government. But most likely they will get crucified and followed by police everywhere or put in jail.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Watch the movie Hooligan Sparrow. If you want to see what happens.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Not even really that involved in politics, but just somebody trying to get a law to be enforced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even just understanding the law literally, you can see that the standing committee that has came up over and over again has the ultimate power. And you know who gets to be on the standing committee? Well, there's anywhere between 150 to 200 people that make it into the standing committee at the national level, at the National People's Congress. And if you look at the list, most of these 150 to 200 people have a 40-year history in the party. and you can find their resumes on like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And they have worked their way up and climbed the ladder and played the game.
And not by doing going out and trying to get votes and shaking hands.
No. And
kissing babies.
Yeah. And these are the people who, coincidentally are already running the government.
Yeah.
So it's, how convenient is that? They're already making the decisions. Let's just have them on the standing committee.
Yeah.
And they get to do this full time, by the way. Which goes to most of the elected people's representatives. This is not a full-time job for them, unless you're one of these standing committee members.
So the standing committee might actually make some real decisions.
I mean, some people have to make some decisions.
Yeah.
China's a big country.
Yes.
There is a functioning government.
That's the level on the national scale where to a certain extent the theater ends.
Yeah.
And you have real decision makers
Behind
closed doors.
Closed doors, yeah.
But that standing committee, none of the elections or anything that goes on below that have anything really to do with who gets in that standing committee.
No, zero.
It's just called the people standing to kind of give it an association with something that
it's within the People's Congress.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it really? So let's talk about the other ones who don't get to be on the standing committee.
Okay.
The ones who only get to do this part-time once a year in March.
Okay.
So they don't get office or staff, right? It's not like a congressman or woman.
They don't have staffers.
In America.
Well, they don't have to read the bills, really. Thought they were going to debate them.
There is no pay, right? Obviously, there might be some travel stipends for them to go to Beijing. But when they go, because it is like a week-long process, right? Or sometimes 2 weeks. It's not just like you go on the weekend and come back on Monday for work.
That was in the original National People's Assembly, like the original in 1912 or 13, when the Republic of China had its first assembly with Ren Shikai as president.
Yeah.
He gave everybody like a travel stipend of like the equivalent
They're
of
like,
like
that's
of
bribery.
like $20,000 or $50,000.
Oh wow! Travel in style.
Yeah. So just because you're not being paid and you're just
Yeah.
getting a travel stipend, that doesn't mean it can't be very much worth your while.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But on paper, these people are not getting
They're just
paid a
servants
salary.
they're servants of the people.
They're servants
shit.
of the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who supposedly though pays for these people's representatives' wages when they have to attend these meetings and travel and participate in this not a democracy? Well, the law says, quote unquote, the unit where they work should treat this as normal attendance, and they enjoy the wages and other benefits of the unit they work for during the People's Congress.
Well, that sounds very like Iron Rice Bowl, like it's designed for
that's still the law.
Shoe factory number 37.
There is no, I know. And there's no reason to change the law because the law is not followed anyway. So it's not really a problem, right? It's not a practical problem.
But that's what it was for. It'd be like you're the workers from the 17th, Shanxi porcelain bowl factory.
Yes.
And they got to keep it.
I don't know if Shanxi has 17 porcelain bowl factory.
Whatever it is,
or like
right?
the coal mines or the steel factory.
Whatever's in Shanxi province.
Okay.
Just
a very delicate example that you have given.
Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're supposed to pay for you, and everybody cheers when you get on the train to go be the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone goes. Also abandon their work and cheers.
Yeah, we're so honored, that we have somebody from the number 17 porcelain bowl factory.
Yeah. So let me give you the actual definition of the unit because I found it very fascinating because the Chinese word is danwei. If you have grown up in mainland China in the 80s, 90s, 70s or earlier, you will understand this word unit, danwei, as like the workplace, the place you work. So my grandmother to this day asked me, how are things going on with danwei?
With your production unit.
Yeah, with my production unit, right? With my unit. And I go, I don't even need to explain. I just know she's asking about the place I work for, which is not a unit. It's a capitalist. I'm living in sin. I work at a place that's not an iron rice ball situation. Yeah, but okay. Unit, that is. The work unit. It's a term of the People's Republic of China from the period of planned economy and even the period of contemporary market economy. Units can be divided into organ units, which means like the actual core government, public institutions, and enterprise units according to their nature. It's like you're like playing a communist video game. You're like learning
that's what central planning is.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes the workers, things don't work out as well.
So, okay, so the unit is supposed to pay their wages. What if you don't work for an iron rice ball unit? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
You're not going to get elected then.
Yeah, exactly. So, in essence, if you get to be the people's representative at the highest level, national level, you go to Beijing once a year, you vote on some things that the party has decided that you need to vote on. And
also what your vote should be.
Yeah. And maybe you comment on some things and ask some questions, and you wear costumes if you're an ethnic minority.
And you say how glad you are for the party.
Yes.
And you do a press release.
Yeah. And it's like a town hall with very grand venues and very strict rules. And everyone who even gets to participate in the town hall and ask the questions needs to be elected first and approved by the party first. Very strict control.
Yeah.
And the main leaders of the party and the government of various provinces, municipalities, and autonomous regions in China, as well as the mayors of cities, are going to be representatives, the National People's Congress. That's not said so in the law, but it just somehow always worked out that way.
Yeah.
Must be because the people felt like they are.
Everyone's just so happy with their mayors and their regional administrators.
Yes. Even for people who say that, yes, China has elections, and even how the Chinese election is supposed to work, it doesn't work. For one thing, these fake representatives, even if they get the chance to actually participate, they're not elected on expertise or policy making or governance.
Or even popularity.
They don't have to represent their good ideas on how to make society better.
I mean, arguably,
they don't have to be popular.
Well, I say arguably, neither do U.S. politicians, but they at least have to be popular. They at least have to win a vote.
Oh, they have ideas for the government.
I know, but they don't have to.
The idea might be there should be no government, but that's an idea.
It's true, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea sometimes is let's not let those people vote, right?
Yeah.
But
let's have more global warming.
I'm not saying all ideas are good ideas, but they have to present some ideas.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So, but in China, a lot of time, unless you're like the mayor, or the party official who you get to be the people's representative, the other people, a lot of times it's like someone who's the best worker from the local factory who has never taken a day off in 30 years. And they get to be the representative and goes to Beijing once a year and vote on some stuff.
They're going to have some freebies in there.
Yeah, exactly. Not to sound like a coastal elite or someone who thought Hillary Clinton should have been president because she's the most qualified, which I do. But I mean, how is that supposed to work? And that's one group, right? The factory workers who has never missed a day in 30 years. On the other hand, ethnic minority representation is guaranteed. Every province gets assigned a set number, a strictly set number. But how can you guarantee that if it's a true democracy? How can you guarantee that if you just let people vote for whoever they want to vote for? You can't. Okay, so it doesn't work. Even logically, on paper, it doesn't work.
If you have 30 slots for your province and 10 of them are supposed to be Manchurians.
Yeah.
And okay, you can have 50 candidates. It's how do you know you're going to get exactly 10 Manchurians?
Well,
I know because it's not real.
Yeah. So now we have gone through how it's not real and why it just won't be real even if you follow the law.
So you show up. Mm-hmm. You have policy that's already been decided on by somebody else. Mm-hmm. Maybe the standing committee. Yeah. Maybe just a think tank in Beijing.
Yeah.
You show up. Somebody maybe even gets to propose it. They say, we in, I don't know, Hunan province think this should happen. Mm-hmm. And then everybody goes.
Yeah.
And also claps and everybody signs for it, right?
Yeah.
Do laws ever not get past the People's Congress? And do laws ever come up and nobody votes for them?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Also, these meetings are not public, by the way. It's not like a Congress session that's like streamed on
it's
TV.
It's not public.
These are closed doors meetings.
But every once in a while, they'll show some clips from a speech,
For propaganda.
Yeah, for propaganda,
yes. We certainly all got to witness the vote for President 11 to become
president for life.
For President Xi Jinping to
become Emperor Xi Jinping.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry, to eliminate the term limits, which is always a good thing in any democracy. You don't want term limits. You want people to have an ultimate.
That's why Congress and Senate are so effective because of term limits.
Wait, they don't have term limits?
No.
Oh shit, they don't.
That's why everybody's been there for 50 years.
Okay, well, maybe my argument does not work then.
I personally think there should be some term limits, but what you gotta do. I think that, and then it's like I see things like sometimes like the people who've been there a really long time, they actually can get stuff done.
We like Nancy Pelosi in this
like
household.
I do like Nancy Pelosi.
Yes.
Like her little outfits. But anyway.
So who are the people in it today? Who are actually the people who get to be on it? Okay, so are you ready for the 2022 People's Congress?
I'm ready.
It's makeup.
I'm imagining it's like a wrestling competition. It's like, are you ready for your 2022 People's Congress representatives? Like fireworks go off.
No, that's not how it works.
And they all, like,
Sometimes
come on
there
the
are
stage?
fireworks, yes. So there are a total of 2,980 people
Okay.
who are people's representatives. 170 of them get to be on the standing committee where shit actually happens. So out of
And the people in the standing committee aren't the factory worker who never took a day off.
no. Out of 2,980 representatives, 2,085 of them are CCP members.
Okay.
The other seats are mostly taken by the 8 legally recognized minority political parties.
Okay.
You want to know who
Yeah,
who
what's
are
the
the 8
opposition
opposition
parties,
parties?
Sherry?
Okay. So, and we're going to talk about like how many seats they
We
took
got like
up.
the Democrats,
Yeah.
Republicans, the Tories,
No.
Labor Party, Green Party, anything like that?
No, nothing like that. Okay, so the number one. Okay, also I'm going with the official ranking.
Okay.
There is an official rank how you're supposed to mention them, especially like in state media.
But like,
you can't just
why are they ranked though?
well, it's through negotiation and compromises apparently.
Okay, really? Okay.
That's what the party says. Through long negotiation and everyone agrees in this ranking.
Okay.
Whatever this ranking does, I have no idea because it's none of this is real. But the first one is the Revolutionary Committee of the Chinese KMT.
The
The
Kuomintang?
Kuomintang, the yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you most likely knows who the KMTs are.
They were the party of Sun Yat-sen and later Chiang Kai-shek. Lost the Civil War and fled to Taiwan.
Yeah.
Still around, but kind of becoming increasingly irrelevant.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is supposedly the remaining of the KMT in China. But I thought it was like more like a branch of KMT in China today.
Yeah.
But actually, it really doesn't have much to do with the KMT in Taiwan today at all. If the KMTs want to talk to mainland China for some stuff, it's not like they go and talk to the Chinese KMT. They don't need to talk to them. They only talk to the people in power.
Yeah.
The CCP,
So the Revolutionary Party of the KMT, that might almost be closer to like the legacy of Sun Yat-sen.
Well, it's it started as the remaining KMTs in China.
The
after
collaborators.
1949.
The collaborators.
Yeah, the collaborators, yes.
Okay.
Which is why this is the Revolutionary Committee of the KMT.
Yeah.
Okay? And the
I'm
second...
surprised there were any left after the Cultural Revolution and the anti-rightist campaign.
Exactly.
Well, there probably weren't any
Well,
left.
they're new members now. They can't
who
live
wants to
that
be,
long. Yeah.
Okay, we need some guys for this opposition party. Who wants to say they're part of the KMT? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Me,
Why not?
I'll do it.
Yeah. So they have 44 seats in the 2022 People's Congress.
Okay.
Okay? The second in line is the Chinese Democratic League.
Okay.
And it's mostly supposedly to be intellectuals.
Okay.
Okay? They took up 57 seats in this Congress.
So like college professors and
Sure.
writers or something.
Well,
okay.
no, we have one just for writers.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
If this was real, these aren't political groups. These are
No.
if this was real, these would be almost more like lobbyists,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like these would be more like, like special interest groups.
Yes.
They're not actually even within the logic of the system. They're not really political parties.
no, they're divided or categorized by like profession.
Yeah.
Or like the
By their
sector of the society they're in.
Yeah, by their interests essentially. They're They're special interest groups basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're opposition parties.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we can't deny.
Yeah,
that
there are
they're-
checks and balances.
That's true.
Because we
That's
have
true.
them. Yeah. So the third in line, Chinese Democratic National Construction Association.
Okay.
And this is supposedly the economists and related experts and scholars.
Okay.
And they took up 57 seats in 2022's People's Congress.
Okay. I wonder if they're having a rough time right now.
Right? The next one, the fourth in line, China Association for Promoting Democracy.
A lot of the word democracy in a lot of these
Just-
parties.
I know, exactly.
How could it not be democracy, Cherry? If
How
they
could
have
it not
this
be
many
democratic?
democracies?
Yeah. Well, this is supposedly the intellectuals that work in education, culture, and publishing. And they took up 58 seats in the People's Congress. The next one, the name has nothing to do with what it is, but it is called the China Peasants and Workers Democratic Party. but it is the intellectuals in the fields of health and medicine.
Okay.
Yeah. So 56 seats in 2022. And the next one is Chinese Party of Public Interests. And this is returned overseas Chinese, family members of overseas Chinese, and representative persons, experts, and scholars with overseas connections. And they take up 38 seats.
Okay.
And the next one is, the seventh, is the 93 Academic Society, 93学社, and it is the science and technology community.
Okay.
And they took up 64 seats, which is the most within the eight opposition parties. The last one might be my favorite one. It is the Taiwan Democratic Self-Government League. And it's not the KMTs.
Okay.
But it is a political alliance of socialist laborers, socialist cause builders, and socialist patriots composed of people from Taiwan province. That's what we're calling Taiwan apparently. It is a close, friendly party that accepts the leadership of the Communist Party of China and cooperates with the Communist Party of China.
Well, so I'm kind of doing the math in my head. You said there was like 2,100 or something party seats. This is maybe like 400.
Yeah.
So who's the rest?
Well,
Oh,
can I
okay.
just...
Oh, okay.
The Taiwanese communists,
Yeah.
they only get 13 seats, by the way. Not much voice. Not that these seats represents voice anyways,
No.
but even on paper. Without party affiliation, 469.
Okay.
Probably,
Factory
workers who have never missed a day.
Okay.
So, or the best street sweepers. Or,
So do
the
any
best
of-
teacher of the province.
Yeah.
There are also 41 empty seats in 2022's People's National Congress.
For a reason or just
No,
they didn't get around to it?
I guess they just didn't get around to it. Who
Okay.
cares?
Yeah.
It's not like Beijing or
And it's not like they-
Jiangsu province is gonna be like, we want those seats if
Yeah.
no one's occupying them.
I
You don't
guess
get
it's
to
not
say
like
that.
they need a quorum.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about all of these 8 opposition parties is that all of them, you can trace their history back to before 1949. And this is significant in a way because during the building of the new China, the Communist Party kind of made it seem like it's going to be a democracy, a multi-party system.
Yeah, no. And then we talked about in the brainwashing episode of like, there's people who were like, oh, well, maybe this won't be so bad.
Yeah.
The communists or whatever, I'm part of this other party. Some people weren't even part of the KMT, right?
No.
They believed in some other thing. They're like, well, maybe this will be okay.
Yeah.
They're saying it's going to be friendship.
Yeah, the CCP is like, we're not going to be like the KMTs.
Yeah,
We're
it'll
not
be
going
worse.
to. Yeah, exactly. So, but so these rubber stamp
Yeah.
organizations, they still, continues today
Mm-hmm.
at least as a official sort of a statement that China has this system
Yeah.
of multi-party. But I mean, you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a pretty grim picture.
Yeah.
But I want to say it wasn't always like this. So the law was established in 1979, right? And
Yeah.
it has been 40 years. And even though the law itself hasn't changed all that much,
45 years.
oh my God,
Yeah.
43,
43.
yeah, more than 4 decades later.
Yeah.
China itself has gone through some pretty transformative changes.
Mm-hmm.
The first decade after this law was established in the 1980s looked very different in many ways from today. Especially in how democratic and how much political freedom the Chinese people had overall.
Okay.
The 1980s, which ended in Tiananmen Square in 1989,
Yeah.
looked quite hopeful for a while. Economic policies were opening up, or loosening up. The party kept a light hand politically, relatively speaking, compared to China's history.
Yeah.
Obviously, where it's all on a scale. And as a result, though, local elections sometimes were treated very seriously by the voters. Many of these elections happened in districts with large populations of university students, and that was a hotbed for action. For example, there are many records and photos of elections.
Also, they're young. They're
hopeful, they're
hopeful.
young, they're not
Yeah.
bitter yet,
Yeah.
They haven't been crushed by society
Yeah.
in the party just
Or a
yet.
tank.
Or tanks, yeah. So, for example, there are many records and photos of election campaigns happening in colleges, campuses, happening in college campuses in the 1980s. And if you read the speeches of the candidates, you might think, wow, China is really heading towards a great direction. You know, there are legit debates. There are heated discussions of how democracy should work, where China should go, and earnest efforts. The famous 1986 student demonstration, 86学潮, began at the University of Science and Technology in the city of Hefei on December 5th, 1986, in response to students' demands to nominate their own candidates for the National People's Congress instead of just choosing from someone that the government has appointed.
Which is technically the law. They should
Which
be
is
allowed
the law. They're just asking for...
They should be allowed to nominate their own candidates.
Exactly.
Technically speaking.
Yeah. But they didn't want to just be handed a list and choose one from the...
Which is what you said. I mean, that the law says that, but nobody ever really gets to nominate candidates.
No. So they protested.
Yeah.
And this protest spread to other cities, and at its peak, 150 universities in China from 20 major cities participated. In Shanghai, the city government had to call in the police to remove the students. And the students in the Hefei province at the University of Science and Technology protested that by organizing a sitting in front of the province's municipal government building. And I thought that was, it was a collaboration. It was support across provincial lines. Is that a thing that people say? Well, I guess people say across state lines a lot in America.
Yeah, you can say
provincial lines, yeah. And Hu Yaobang, the general secretary of the party, which, if you don't know how the Chinese government and the CCP works, this is a big job. He lost his big job, though, because of this, and basically was expelled from the center of power in the party due to his lack of hard response to the students. And if his name doesn't sound familiar to you, basically, his death in 1989 from a heart attack during a party meeting, then from another heart attack again in the hospital days later. But his death basically started the wave of protests in Tiananmen Square, elsewhere in the country.
Because he was seen as sort of a possible reformer.
Yes. And,
and the students realized they weren't going to get anybody else like him anytime soon.
No. So, it's not just the students.
Yeah.
There are citizens from all different walks of life.
Yeah.
And that gathered and demanded democracy, reforms, and transparency in the Chinese government. So we all know how that ended.
And it wasn't even really, I think, necessarily let's tear it down. Some of it is just, let's actually follow the rules in the law that you have passed.
No, they want transparency.
Yeah.
They want less corruption.
Yeah.
No one was saying we should no longer have the part. Well, some people were, I'm sure. It's a protest. You can't control everyone's message, but the main thing was not that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's not okay. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So we all know how that ended. This is not a Tiananmen Square episode, which I don't know if I'm ever going to do one. It's too depressing and too, I don't know.
But basically that kind of just established, no.
When push comes to shove.
The election law is not real.
No,
you can't challenge it.
No.
And 3, you have to act like it's real.
Yeah. But it's not, we didn't get to Tiananmen Square in a month.
No, it was a 10-year process.
Yeah. And quite a lot of vibrant possibilities and hopeful outlooks during those 10 years in terms of elections, local elections, and political movements, and freedom of speech, freedom of press. Yeah. For example, if you look up 1980s Beijing City Haidian District, the People's Representatives election, you can find pictures, you can find records of speeches, you can find the list of candidates who nominated themselves.
Real election stuff.
Exactly.
All the stuff you were talking about that's been missing
yeah.
in Chinese elections over the past 30 years.
Yes. So it's not like, so this law that still exists today, it's not like the people haven't pushed its limits.
Yeah.
The people haven't tried to follow it.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's been made clear.
Yeah.
Very soon. Mm. Or perhaps some people might say not soon enough because the party, by applying a light hand for a good, 9 years.
Yeah.
Or the crackdowns just weren't hard enough during that decade, had led to 1989.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think
it's sad.
It is sad, but also on the other hand, it's that to upkeep a strict autocracy,
Yeah.
to upkeep the strict social control,
Yeah.
right? It is a very long, heinous, resource-heavy process.
Yeah.
Which is why the Chinese government, it's almost like it's a vicious circle. In order to keep control, you need more control.
Yeah.
And you need to apply the resources and throw everything you've got at the machine in order to keep 1980s from happening again.
Yeah. And also, I mean, like, you know, some of this stuff, it's like currently the whole thing with like the people right now, if you haven't read the news, there's a big thing going on with people not wanting to pay for mortgages for homes that haven't been finished on time. Or not even that they haven't been finished on. In China, you pre-buy homes. You have to start the mortgage before the construction starts.
Sometimes.
But a lot of these people are in this situation. And then not only is the place not done at time, the company has halted construction. So there's no real evidence of when it will ever get finished. Right? And now so you have, you know, expensive apartment that
and they don't have insurance, by the way. It's not like
no. So there's nobody. So they would
the
just
constructors don't have insurance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so from the perspective of the law, they're just expected to pay this mortgage forever on a property that's never going to get built.
Yeah.
So people are refusing it. And, you know, no one knows who's going to foot the bill. And I was reading an op-ed that's like, you know, people say that the government should bail these people out or bail the situation out.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, they're not, because now that people have complained and have shown that they're upset about it, like in a very public way, if the government gives them relief, then that now shows like
give you an
protests
inch.
can make a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that's kind of the stuff with this election laws is you know, if
you can't let loose at all.
You have to, it has to be 100% essentially fake.
Yeah.
Because if anybody gets a little wedge in there, I mean, that's why that's
why they put down candidates that can only get 10 like signatures anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like there's never going to be a hope.
Yeah.
Even in a real election, they get elected, but you don't even want to give them 1 ounce of like hope.
Yeah. And that's why I think, you know, when you like in the, you know, 2010-ish, 2011, 2012, they basically cracked down and arrested like every human rights lawyer, everything, all this stuff. Because, you know, they didn't.
Once you start asking for human rights.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Once you establish that you have the ability to challenge the government in any way, then people go, oh, this is an option, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's not even the government. You don't even have to challenge the government.
It's like a corporation.
You just have to challenge an establishment, which then can be translated to, okay, we can stand up to the establishment.
To big companies.
That translates to, okay, maybe we can make a difference in society, in government, in a bureaucracy.
Yeah, you have to crush everything so people's only hope is maybe I'll get some more money and then life will be a little better.
Exactly.
But nothing else can change, you know?
No.
So that's, I guess that's
Sorry, this is so depressing.
But that's, I mean, that's the legacy of, it's stasis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a ceremony and it's stasis.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, they've established that, yes, everybody knows it's not real, except maybe some people who believe what they read on Twitter. And then, but we've established it's not real. We've established you're not allowed to challenge it.
Yeah.
And we've established you have to act like it's real.
Yeah.
Which is, you know.
1984.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, this is all very depressing. I feel like people are not going to want to listen to the podcast because all we do
Our
is
next episode's on Bye, Joe. You know?
Yeah, next episode will be fun. Well, can I just say, I feel like it has been empowering for me as someone who couldn't differentiate propaganda and reality very well and who wasn't taught to do that. And there is a refreshing feeling that's almost a little bit empowering to at least be able to detect the lie. And obviously, I'm not saying like...
To understand, like, for example, how messy real democracy is and what it looks like and all of the stuff that has to surround it for it to work.
Yeah.
And then logically looking at, like, sure, they're saying they're doing this, but you look at it and there's none of the stuff happening that you would need to have happen to actually have a vote.
Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been an interesting journey for me, these 3 episodes. Hopefully it is for you, our listeners. And I guess next time you talk to a tanky, you have some ammunition in your chest.
Yeah. And I was thinking I want us to do an episode, or maybe convince Chair to do an episode originally on like how government actually works in China. Like,
No, it's not possible to do that.
well, just
episode.
let me, you know what I mean? Like, at a local level,
Yeah.
at like a provincial level, at the national level.
Yeah.
But in reality, this is more of an episode on how government doesn't work in China.
Well, yeah.
Right? I mean, like how decisions aren't made. It's just really, regardless of whatever a government website says or the Chinese government says about how the government works at a local level or a higher level, like you just don't know, right? In the end, it's just some people, some dudes in a back room who make a decision.
Maybe.
And then it filters out to
maybe, yeah. But I mean, again, we're not. It's not that I don't want to do that episode. That's just not a realistic topic.
Yeah.
I mean, people who do this for a living, you don't know how the Chinese government works.
No, because it doesn't even. I mean, even province to province, it probably doesn't work exactly the same. You know what I mean? It's all.
Yeah. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
People
That's
behind
too
closed
arrogant.
doors.
Yeah, it's too arrogant to say we can do a topic like that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But.
So. But I don't think it's too arrogant to do an episode on baijiu.
Yeah, Chinese liquor.
Yeah. Nali has. Yeah.
If you want to participate in Chinese baijiu episode, you should get some. And then whenever we do ganbei, whenever we do a toast as part of the episode, you can do a toast too.
Oh,
and
a drinking game, yeah.
And you'll feel like you're part of the action.
Yes.
Except don't do that if you have medical problem, and you should drink responsibly.
And don't listen to the episode when you're driving.
And don't do that either, unless you're not drinking.
Yeah.
Don't ganbei in the car.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for bearing with us for this very long episode.
3 episodes.
For this very long series.
Mm-hmm.
We will have some more fun episodes coming up. Recommend us to your friends and family if you enjoy
We appreciate
what you heard. Yeah.
Somebody left us a very nice review on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are, but thank you.
Yeah.
And have a nice day.
See you next time.